everyone's.
I think it's everyone.
It is everyone's responsibility.
Federal law entitles all employees to a safe workplace, including the right to a harassment-free work environment. Therefore, it's essential that we be able to recognise workplace harassment and the impact that it can have on our colleagues and employees. Workplace harassment can lead to a number of negative outcomes, including decreased productivity, increased stress, poor morale, and even legal consequences. Common forms of workplace harassment include verbal, physical, visual, cyber, sexual, discriminatory, and also bullying. Harassment is based on the creation of a hostile work environment or negative impact on an employee's well-being. While some forms of harassment may not meet the criteria for being illegal, they can still be detrimental to the workplace atmosphere. Harassment can involve a wide range of behaviours, including verbal, physical, visual, or psychological actions that degrade, humiliate, or discriminate against an individual.
In workplaces, there is a line, a very bright line, that if you cross over this line, you are into the land of sexual harassment. We don't dance near the line, we don't skirt with the line, we don't prance around the line, we stay all the way over there. We know that this is not actually what's happening in workplaces, that sexual harassment continues to persist. This is happening because of a lack of leadership accountability. Revenue is valued over the lived human experience of experiencing the violation of sexual harassment. For those of you in leadership roles in particular, we model the behavior we expect of others. And if we are modeling bad behavior at the leadership ranks and there is no accountability for that bad behavior, it will continue to persist. And so we must interrupt it.
Sexual harassment is a form of discrimination based on sex or gender and consists of unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favours, or other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. Sexual harassment can include inappropriate touching, suggestive comments or jokes, sharing or displaying explicit or offensive images, or making sexual propositions. It can also involve creating a hostile work environment through gender-based comments, objectification, or exclusionary behaviour. Recognising these different types of harassment is the first step in preventing them and ensuring a healthy work environment for all.
We conducted one of the largest studies ever on witnesses of harassment and discrimination at work. Why witnesses? The first time that I was victimized and became the target of inappropriate workplace behavior, a couple of academics who were far more senior than me repeatedly and relentlessly targeted me. And every time something happened, I wished that someone would speak up, that they would tell me that I'm not overreacting, that I'm sane, that there's something that we could do. But instead, I found myself with reporting paralysis. Why didn't I just speak up? Well, I was worried about the consequences for my career because I loved my work. I was also worried about things that many people see as barriers, like not being believed or taken seriously, like my situation resulting in no change. The story of the witness has remained almost entirely untold. When the Harvey Weinstein scandal first broke, one of his colleagues, Scott Rosenberg, wrote a searing critique on social media regarding Hollywood's systemic failure to safeguard young women. At the end of each paragraph was "everybody effing knew." Everybody effing knew. We looked at these stories and we were shocked when we found that 93% of victims reported that there was at least one witness. These things aren't happening behind closed doors. But even when those same researchers present an actual physical situation where someone needs to actually intervene, most people do nothing, and they fall prey to the well-known bystander effect. 3/4 of people who we had interviewed, which was over 1,000 participants, 3/4 of them said that they never reported the incident to HR. They never reported the incident to someone who could do something about it. And the barriers that they cited, the number one barrier was actually the exact same as the main barrier that victims report, which is the fear of consequences or retaliation. Other reasons that people reported was not wanting to interfere or not wanting to be a snitch, not knowing they could report or not knowing how. We also found evidence of a social contagion. While 23% of participants told HR, More, 46% told colleagues, usually someone on their team, and 67% told someone outside of work. And this has the real effect that is almost certainly threatening your ability as an organization to retain and attract diverse and excellent candidates. In my research, I've come across 5 particular things that I think every organization can and should do to help tackle this issue and to build healthier workplaces. First, showcase your commitment. Second, train your managers. The main person who's likely to harass someone in your organization is a manager. We promote people into managerial roles because they're excellent at their jobs, and we assume that they will pick up the people skills, pick up the management skills along the way. But then they don't. And this provides a fertile ground for harassment and discrimination. We know from research on victims that without the ability to report anonymously, the fear of consequences is so overwhelming that most people will never report incidents. Perhaps shockingly, although managers are the most likely person to be perpetrating harassment or discrimination, in many organizations, they're also supposed to be your first point of contact when things go wrong. Now that's a major sticking point. Fourth, even when you have all of this in place, most people will not speak to HR. Anonymity is one piece of the puzzle. Conducting surveys means that you go out to your employees. You don't wait for them to come to you. And be specific. Ask people about specific incidents or specific things they've witnessed. If you ask people directly if they've experienced harassment or discrimination, the default answer is no. Finally, and most importantly, research shows that one of the best ways to mitigate the bystander effect is to build a shared social identity. It's not about policing each other. It's not about calling each other out. It's about being a cohesive unit. We are in this together. If you attack one of us, you're attacking all of us. Because wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want someone to stand by you if something negative happens? Without my allies, I wouldn't be here. When I was first targeted, I fell into a depression and I almost left academia altogether. And I wish I had a happy ending for you, but unfortunately, these individuals are still at it. You see, in organizational structures where colleagues work in dispersed ways, where it's difficult to know who even to report to, never mind what the consequences might be, these kinds of behaviors are most likely to flourish for longer.
Here are some key indicators to look for. Pay attention to any sudden or significant shifts in a co-worker's behavior, such as increased stress, withdrawal, loss of confidence, or reluctance to participate in work-related activities. If you notice patterns of exclusion, unequal treatment, or favoritism, it could be an indication of harassment. If you hear multiple complaints or concerns from co-workers about a particular person or their behavior, it's essential to take these reports seriously and investigate further. If an employee or co-worker appears to be suffering from emotional distress, such as excessive crying, anxiety, or difficulty concentrating, it could be a sign that they're dealing with harassment.
Take a hard look at the people around you. Are they happy? Are they really good at what they do? And if they're not, figure out why.
Start being the reason that things get better, not worse.
That is so cute because it's totally nice.
Hi, everybody. How are we doing today? Welcome to our GoBEST studios. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of fun things. Hopefully, you guys learn a few things. Do not forget to go to gobest.com/register or text the number below so that you can get access to registration. Everybody needs to register for today's meeting. So if you are logged in, take a minute right now, get your registration done. This is one major topic of the day is going to be sexual harassment and discrimination. That is a meeting we've been trying to have since January. So finally, our attorney is here today to do her meeting. And we are so excited to have Deanna in with us in the studio. So yes, go to GoBestBiz.com/registration and get registered right now so that you get credit for being here today. Otherwise, nobody will know. You should be in a large room with lots of friends, lots of other cast members, because this is your all cast meeting today. So it's nice to be in front of all of you. Wolf is having lunch. That's good. I'm glad to see that you and Scotty are enjoying your day. Good for you. You look nice. All right, everybody should be registered. So let's get rolling. Presenting today will be 1, 2, 3, now we're playing with the big boys. Gonna take it to the street, now we're gonna make a big noise. Animated fucking people to stare at the top of the screen. Scotty Wolf, are you ready for the mission statement? Some people say it's cult-like because we read our mission statement every time. We do this just as a friendly reminder, so we always are thinking about what we're trying to accomplish in this industry as a whole. No matter what business you're in, you're trying to achieve these goals. So all we're doing by reading the mission statement is continuing to reiterate our goals as much as we possibly can. We deliver an immersive adventure, harnessing masterful showmanship, outrageous service, and an over-the-top experience. And we just saw that at the bar and restaurant convention. Our team, you guys would be so proud of the team here in Las Vegas at GoBEST. We put together an amazing show at the bar and restaurant. We had the best booth. It was so cool. We will be sending out pictures so all of you can see them on social media or on the YouTube channel, so you can check out how awesome our booth was compared to everybody else. We literally built a nightclub in the middle of the Bar and Restaurant Association convention. So it was very cool. Unbelievable, over the top stuff. So great job. Kudos to the team. So good job. Let's go on to the best factor. The excitement a guest feels from the moment they discover your venue, which reignites every time they remember their experience. So important. Again, people are going to talk about what they saw at the bar and nightclub. So no matter where we're going, we're trying to create word of mouth. We want to give them something to talk about, something to think about, something to imagine. It's like a great dad joke I heard today. I'm going to remember this all the time, this wonderful dad joke I heard today. Do you guys know why the bike couldn't stand up by itself? It was too tired. It was too tired.
We need to laugh at that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I got Scotty to smile. That's what I like to see. All right. Do you guys know what kind of tree fits in your hand?
Big room, Las Vegas.
A palm tree. That's right, Scotty. You thought of that one. Good job. All right. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. See, those are going to be things you remember every time you think about our GoBest meeting. The fun dad jokes, the best factor. That's what's going to reignite inside of you. This is what it's all about when we talk about the best factor and creating this excitement. So those are some of the things we're trying to achieve by going through all of these mantras, the best factor, why guest visits our clubs. All of these things are so that you're continuing to remember and think about all the things that we want to achieve as a business to keep creating guest experiences that brings them back time and time again. Whoa, I got a disco ball. Look at my cool little disco ball. Look, I can see up her skirt. That's kind of cool. It's fun being a little mini-me over in the corner on these things sometimes. Yes, we are going to talk about throwing the ultimate party today. But before I do that, I have to get myself party ready. I don't know if you know or not, this is alcohol armor. In preparation for a wild night at any of our venues, you should always make sure you drink plenty of alcohol armor. Good stuff. I feel better already. How you feeling now, Wolf? That's good stuff, isn't it? All right, moving right along. What do we do to make sure we have the ultimate party? once we properly hydrated and we got ourselves ready. First, have fun, be fun. This is the Wolf mantra, like we talked about. Things to remember to create success. Have fun, be fun. That means always put a smile on your face. Throw a party. It seems so simple, but if you're bored, everybody else is bored. If you aren't having a good time, nobody's having a good time. Run the show from the floor. You cannot manage from the office. You cannot do this business hiding in a closet. You've got to get out there and shake hands and be a part of the entertainment. We are all in the show. Every one of us is on the stage, no matter what business we're operating. So you have to be on the floor, on your stage, showing everybody how much fun it is to do business with your business. Teach, guide, train. We talked about that a lot last meeting. Make sure you're always learning new stuff. You're teaching new stuff. You're guiding new people. And once you do that, you have to lead by example. You have to walk the path of what you teach, guide, and train. You can't just talk about it. You got to be about it. And that's part of the Wolf mantra for throwing the ultimate party. And then throwing legendary parties. That's stepping it up. Not only is it ultimate, what makes it a legend? What makes a legendary party is people leave the party talking about it. They tell the story. It's not a legend if there's no story to be told. So make sure your over-the-top party is awesome and legendary. Make sure you plan ahead. The 5 Ps, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. So make sure you're on top of making sure you understand what the challenges are going to be for your party. What's going to be the most difficult things to do? And then tackle those first. Be proactive. Get out there. Find more ways to get more people involved. Anticipate the guest needs. What are the guests going to need when they come to your party? If you're having a house party, what do you do to make sure the people that come to your house party are going to have a good time? If it's going to be a chocolate party, you better make sure there's a lot of chocolate. If you're going to have a pot party, you better go down to your local dispensary and get a lot of weed. If you're going to have a pool party, you better make sure there's water in your fucking pool. All of this is the simple stuff you need to do to anticipate your guest needs for whatever your party's going to be. Be well organized. Make sure everybody knows what their job is during the process of this party. Make sure you have everything outlined. You have documentation for people to read and follow up on. Make sure your guests can understand what your party's about. It's not so over the top that nobody even understands what it is you're trying to present to them. And then it ends up being confusing and less exciting. Energy, engagement. Make sure you have some sort of engagement, some sort of call to action. Why do they want to come to your party? What makes it special? Live up to your brand promise. If you are promising to be where the party never ends, then your party can't fucking end. You can't get tired out. You got to continue to be where the party never ends. So live up to these brand promises. If you have goals, how are you going to achieve those goals? If the goal is to have 200 people through the door, how many guests does every one of your cast member need to bring in order to ensure that you meet your 200 guest goal? Success for everyone. We all succeed as a team. If we don't work together and we don't make things happen together, we all fail together. If we all work together, we all communicate, we all team up, we will all succeed together. Why do we throw parties? We throw parties because we want guests to visit our venues. Why do guests visit our venues? Because our venues are a rejection-free zone. They come because they want to be around other people. This is 2 in 1 right here. Social interaction is being around other guests. But in our industry, no matter what it is you're into, no matter what you like, there's somebody that's going to be there to talk to you about what it is you like, what you enjoy doing. You're going to feel good about being there. And if you have enough money, a gorgeous lady might sit with you. You can buy the toys you need to enjoy yourself. You can cut the line at Cat's Meow, get up there and sing and be a rock star for a day. These are all the parts of being in a rejection-free zone. The social interaction is so much easier side of that. People go out because they want to be around other people. If I didn't want to be around other people, I could sit at home and play with my phone. So I'm out. I've had my alcohol armor. I'm ready to party. I want to be around people. So it's your job to help make those connections. No matter what your business is that you're representing today, you're here to make connections and memories. Keep that in mind. Who have you connected your guests with, and what memory are they leaving with? Live action entertainment. Like I just said, you're the part of the stage. You are the show. Everybody in our businesses is part of the live action entertainment. If you're a bartender or if you're a cashier, everybody is a part of this memory. We're all a part of the live action entertainment. It's just not the show on stage. It's everybody. The fantasy. If it's a karaoke bar, people's fantasy is being Elvis and singing on stage. That's their fantasy. The fantasy goes to everything. If I'm going to a sports bar, my fantasy is I'm inside of a sports arena with all of the people watching the same football game I'm watching. We're living a live fantasy every single day. No matter what business you're representing at this meeting, we are all part of somebody's fantasy. They come to us to unplug. Our guests want to get away from their normal mundane life, and they want something more exciting and more enthusiastic. So if you're in there whining about all of your problems and telling them about all of the things you have going on in your life that are negative, you're not helping them unplug from the things that are bothering them. They come to be a part of this fantasy world that we're living in. We don't have Mickey Mouse running around. We have all of you running around. You have to be that imaginary person that has no problems, that has no issues, that's just there to party and have a good time, that's going to boost their day. That's what you're there to do. That's the role you have to play in this business, whatever business you're here representing. And as I said before, most importantly, you have to have fun. If you are not having a good time doing your job, it's going to bleed out. The guest is going to see that, and they're not going to want to continue to do business with you. They're not going to have a positive experience. They're never going to want to come back to your business again. So you have to be fun. And the goal of all of that is to make every one of your guests into a fan. You want to make them into regulars. We're trying to get people to come back. You want them to wear your logo wear. You want them to wear your hat. I get so proud when I'm out and about and I bump into somebody that's wearing one of our brands. It's amazing. Or a friend sends me a picture. They were down in Cabo, and I had friends sending me pictures of dudes wearing hustler hats. That's awesome. That's what we're all about. I mean, if somebody goes into a foreign country wearing one of our brands, that's awesome. We hit a goal. We hit a fan. That's what we're trying to do. So remember, every guest, we want them to become a fan. A fan tells everybody about their experience, comes back time and time again, and brings their friends. That's what a fan does. Legendary parties. Make sure you're planning the day. What's the theme going to be of your party? Did you order the decor and merchandise? This is so important. What is the building going to look like? Did you make special hats, t-shirts? Did you make panties to go for this party? Anything, shoes, keychains. What's the special merchandise that's going to be over the top? Did you change up the seating arrangement inside of the club so it looks a little bit different? It feels a little bit different. Did you find some new colors, some new lightings? Did you order table tents? Did you do some creative social media? What's your online engagement? Hey, if you text right now, you can do this. If you follow us on this, you get that. What are you doing to generate more interest social media wise other than just posting your ad? Did you make a video that talks about the party? Did you make up a version of the party that could be like a prequel to the party, almost like a teaser ad or a tester ad to see how people feel about it? Hashtags, booths, photo booths. Awesome. I just went to this bar and restaurant. The things they're doing with photo booths, every party should have some kind of a photo booth. And make sure you have cast and costumes for whatever the event is at the photo booth for them to take pictures with. Because how boring is it if I come to your party by myself and my photo is me in your photo booth by myself? That sort of loses the fun. That loses the social interaction. That loses the fantasy. It's way more fun if I got two friends hanging out with me that are now looking like they're at the party with me. So when I post all of that on my social media, that I am at Cat's Meow celebrating my birthday, all of a sudden I have all these friends. Now I look cool. Now I feel good. Now I'm living that fantasy. So photo booths are very cool. Identify cross promotions. What kind of party you're doing that might be beneficial to somebody else in your industry, in your area? Are you doing a car show? Have you gone around to all the car dealers in town, all of the parts people, all the tire people, all the rim people? Who can you cross promote with to, one, drive more traffic to your party, two, help somebody else's business do more business, so therefore they want to continually send you business over the years? So that's what identifying cross promotion and potential partners in your party are all about. And have fun, have energy, and be engaging. I think I've beaten have fun to death. Wolf, what is it? Have fun. Wolf, what is it? Have fun. That's it. Have fucking fun. No matter what your business is, no matter what your job is, have fucking fun. Unless, well, you have the lawyers. And then, well,
So much fun.
somewhere the party has to end. It's unfortunate. But if you run into this nice lady, at least she's on your team. Yes, we are going to do our legal seminar with Miss Deanna Forbusch, who has come today to talk to you about anti-discrimination and sexual harassment. And she is going to be reviewing the quiz that you guys got a while back ago. That's alcohol free. That's
I just want to know, do you have another one? Because there's no way I could possibly follow that performance.
Would you like one? I could get one for you.
Yeah, that's much less fun. Like,
would you like some
exactly like
wine?
you
A
said.
little glass of wine?
have fun, except when the lawyers show up.
I know. Well, you know, someone's got to be a lawyer.
All right. Well, thank you,
Everybody
Mr.
else
Mone.
gets to have fun.
Appreciate it.
Or the CPAs. Those are the two no fun. We love Deanna. You do a great
Good
job.
to see you.
I'm out. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy Deanna. Don't forget, she's going to be reviewing the quiz. So if you get something wrong on the quiz, we'll know you tuned us out today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our legal seminar. How are we moving slides? Am I just telling you?
Yes.
And okay, because usually back, in the day, you would have a little clicker here, but hopefully we'll get in sync here and so go ahead and go to the next one. So we're here today with managers, supervisors, and all of our cast members to talk about some of the company's policies. So you'll notice at the bottom of the slide, every single slide has this telephone number. We're going to have a Q&A session after our presentation today. So as we go along today, and there's a topic that piques your interest, and you have a question that we don't cover, just text it to that phone number, and we'll try and cover it before we leave today. But as Mr. Mone said, I've got a copy of the quiz that you guys got back in January, I'm going to say. And it's literally takes 15 minutes to complete this. I just completed it while I was sitting here with one of our coworkers. And I can tell you for sure, every single answer you need to complete this quiz or to get 100% on this quiz, we're going to cover today. And the people that are listening today get an extra bonus because I'll try to tip you off when I remember that, oh, by the way, this is on your quiz. And here's the one sentence answer. So just to introduce myself a little bit, I'm Deanna Forbusch. Those of you that have been with the company for a while probably have met me before. And because I've been around for a while, like, maybe too long, long time. I'm an attorney. I'm with Fox Rothschild. And I specialize in labor and employment and business litigation. We also do training classes like today. I really am going to get one of these. See, now I'm going to have to try this so I can be like a sponsor of the product, right?
Spokeswoman.
A spokeswoman, thank you.
Oh,
For you
All
to
right.
make it really well.
You do, okay. Well, we'll get to that. Anyway, I also do training to help companies stay legally compliant, to make sure that our employees know what their rights are, to make sure that we keep that we maintain a work environment that is safe and healthy, and that we also try to avoid legal liability while we're at it. So you're probably saying, okay, well, we just had that little blurb, that little slide before we got started today. Why are we here for another hour or so? Well, we're going to do some of the stuff we've already done. We're going to review the company's values and the mission statement. You just heard Jason tell you what the company's mission is. And we're going to go into that a little in depth to talk about what do we have to do to make sure that we are achieving the company's mission and objectives. So we're going to review the laws that govern employees' employment, including everybody who's watching this as an employee, whether you're a manager, supervisor, or a frontline employee. We're all employees. We're going to talk about the laws that affect our employment. We're going to review the conduct that's required of our employees to make sure that they stay compliant with our company policies. And we're going to talk about our policies that we've promulgated that pretty much follow the law, not pretty much, but sometimes we have policies that are in addition to what the law requires. All of our policies follow the law that are based on legal requirements. And then we have extra ones, which we'll talk about today. So those are pretty much our objectives today. We're gonna review what the company expects of you as an employee. We're gonna review all of our policies. If you haven't read our handbook, every single one of you got one when you were hired. You had to sign it. If you didn't read it, and especially if you're a manager or a supervisor and you haven't read our handbook, then there is no way you can do your job. If I talk to any manager that tells me they've never read our handbook, I tell them they're not qualified for their position. So if you're one of those supervisors or managers that haven't read the handbook, make sure you do that forthwith. And every employee needs to read it as well. You need to know exactly what the company's policies are so that you can comply with the policies and also know what you can expect from the company. And that's another thing we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what the company expects of you and what you can expect from the company. What can you expect from the company? You can expect to be treated fairly and equitably. You can expect to have a safe and legally compliant work environment to work in, and you can expect to be able to have a dialogue with us. One of the things that is really central to our values as a company is an open door policy. So I don't care what position you hold, whether you're a manager, a supervisor, frontline employee, every single one of us has a boss. Every single one of us has somebody that we have to report to. And that somebody is going to have an open door policy and allow you to come and make comments, make complaints, talk about concerns. And that's one thing that we're very proud of. And if for some reason you find out that door is closed, this is a theme we're gonna come back to over and over again today. The company has made it very, very easy for you to communicate with it. So the first line of communication should be with any one of you, and the company is the open door policy. Go to the person that you report to or any manager or supervisor anytime, and they will sit down and talk to you about whether you have a complaint or a concern or an idea. The open door policy is the first line that you should pursue when you want to communicate with the company. Let's say that doesn't work out, or let's say you don't want to identify yourself, you want to make an anonymous complaint, or you want to make sure you're talking to a lawyer, the company's lawyer. There are attorney hotlines. These numbers are posted in every one of our locations. If you don't know where they are, talk to your manager and you'll find out where they're posted. Take a screenshot of this slide. You should always have these numbers available to you. You can talk to one of the company lawyers anytime. You generally leave a message and you'll get a call back. Maybe not the same day, but it will be within a day or two. And if you don't want to leave a voicemail, then you can communicate in writing. You can you can send a message to info@clubconcerns.com. You can send, there's also GoBESTlistens.com. And there are other lines of communication posted throughout every location. So make sure you use those. And don't be afraid to voice your concerns. Don't be afraid to use the open door policy. Don't be afraid to call one of the hotlines or type an email to one of the company's emails, because and we're going to come back to this, but I thought this would be a good time to get this definition to you, and it is an answer to one of your questions on the quiz. But one of our policies that we'll go over today is absolutely no retaliation for filing a complaint. So what is retaliation? Well, retaliation is when there's some kind of action taken to alter one of your terms or conditions of employment. And that's done in response to you engaging in protected activity. So what's protected activity? Well, the primary one is you make a complaint, or you lodge a complaint, or you participate with somebody who has made a complaint. For example, maybe you serve as a witness or you testify. That's protected activity. And if somebody changes any of your terms or conditions of employment in response to that activity, like demoting you, changing your shift, changing your work location, telling you you no longer are on the schedule, you're only 2 days a week now instead of 5. Oh, here's a write-up that I forgot to give you 3 weeks ago, but here it is now. Or you get terminated, which is the most severe form of retaliation. Our policy absolutely prohibits any form of retaliation. And the first thing you do when if you feel like you've experienced or witnessed or you hear about any form of retaliation, we'll go back a slide. You call and make a complaint, or you use the open door policy and make a complaint. But retaliation will not be permitted at all. The company absolutely prohibits all forms. No one will be punished for reporting any kind of unwanted activity or uncomfortable activity that makes you uncomfortable or that you believe is illegal. And we're going to talk about all the laws that define what all those things mean today, so you'll know for sure, in case you don't know right now. So let's move on. When we talk about all these policies, we're going to cover the company's prohibition against every form of discrimination. We're going to learn what discrimination is, the legal definition, and how to identify it. We're going to talk about the anti-harassment policy, which harassment is a form of discrimination. We're going to talk about our anti-bullying policy, which is kind of like harassment, but maybe not rising to the level of legal of unlawful harassment. And we're going to talk about the company's position on equal opportunity for all employees, irrespective of what your protected category may be. We're going to spend more time talking about the company's policy on reporting prohibited conduct, and we'll touch again on our anti-retaliation policy. And then we'll talk about some kind of related, but workplace policies that are not necessarily prescribed by law, but are our policies. We'll talk about our nepotism policy, which is hiring and working with relatives, our social media policy, our other standards of conduct, dating in the workplace, that kind of thing. So let's just roll right into the ABCs of employment law. Jason told you a little bit about the company's mission statement, which is really covers one of our values. So what are the company values? They want to make sure that their employees have a safe and healthy work environment so that the cast members flourish and succeed under our tutelage, right? We want to make sure that our workplaces are legally compliant. We want to make sure everybody can succeed and feel fulfilled in their as they pursue a career with us. And then when we get to unmatched guest experiences, that's really what our mission statement's about, right? Is providing an unmatched guest experience. Well, we can't do that unless our employees are safe and secure and being properly cared for. So we're going to spend a lot of time today about regarding how we do that. So you're here today because you've been identified as the best of the best. That's who this company hires. So if you work here, you can be sure that somebody thought you were the best of the best, because now you're working for one of the best entertainment companies, I think, in the entire country. And so we're going to ask each one of you to learn the company's policy. If you don't know them, this is a refresher. But if you do know them, this is a refresher. If you don't know them, make sure you learn them and that you do your part to comply with. And if you're a supervisor or manager, enforce our policies and enforce them even-handedly and equitably. If you understand and know our policies and comply with them, you will 100% succeed with this company. You'll flourish and you'll feel fulfilled in your job. So our very first topic that we're going to discuss today is our equal employment opportunity policy. So GoBEST and Deja Vu Services and all their affiliates are equal employment opportunity employers. Well, what does that mean? You know, isn't that just a catchphrase? No, it means that no employment decisions will be made by any of these companies without considering any kind of protected category. So in other words, every employment decision, every decision that is in any way related to employment, and they're listed at the bottom. So we're talking about whether the bottom of the slide. So whether it's hiring someone, you know, the rate of pay that they receive, whether or not they receive a promotion, whether or not they're issued discipline, cameras in my way, but yeah, whether they're terminated or any other term or condition of employment, none of those employment decisions will be made with the consideration of any protected category. So what are the protected categories? Well, race or ethnicity, right? What does that even mean? You know, race, we kind of know what race means, but ethnicity, that's really someone's culture. And so we don't make business decisions based on someone's culture or their race or their color. Now you might be saying, isn't color, you know, we already said we don't do it on race. So why do you say color? Well, color is kind of a subset of race. So let's say you're Hispanic or you're Black. There are varying degrees of skin tones. You know, there are really dark, there's, you know, middle tones, and there's a very light skin folks, all of the same race. So we've seen recently race discrimination complaints that say, oh, my boss wrote me up and this is discrimination based on my race. Well, wait a minute, your boss is your same race. Right, but my boss is light skinned and I'm very dark skinned and he hates dark skinned people. Well, that's emerged as a new category, color. It's a new category of it's a new characteristic that's protected under the law. Also, national origin. Some people say I was discriminated against because of my national origin, Hispanic. Well, that's not, national origin means the country you were born in. So for example, if you were born in the United States, your national origin is American. If you were born in Venezuela, your national origin is Venezuela. Not such a popular country these days. So if somebody says, you know, you're fired, and you think it's because, you know, there's some sort of negative sentiment about Venezuela right now in the United States, then you allege that you were discriminated against because of your national origin. Age is another protected category. People over 40 years of age no employment decision can be made based on their age. That's a protected category under the law. Same thing with sex. And so when we talk about sexual discrimination today, we're talking about discrimination based on gender. My sex is female. So if I'm treated differently because I'm a female, then I've been subjected to sex discrimination. And that means gender discrimination. The law has developed since Title VII was passed, and a lot of states and a lot of case law has been promulgated that has defined what is gender discrimination a little bit more. And it includes gender identity. So maybe I was born a female at birth, but I identify as a male. That is another category of protection, gender identity. Same thing with sexual orientation. Don't presume because, you know, I identify as a female that I will have sex in a way that you find traditional. My sexual orientation is my protected category, and I cannot be treated differently because of it without someone violating the law. Disabilities are also protected categories. So these are physical disabilities, but also mental disabilities. These are not protected under Title VII, but under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we're going to talk about today. Pregnancy has always been a subset gender discrimination. It's always been a part of, what only females get pregnant. So if someone is treated differently due to their pregnancy, we've always said, okay, that's gender discrimination. Now, and I'm going to tell you about it a little later in the program, there's a whole federal act called the Pregnant Worker Fairness Act that's just became effective in July. Now, being treated differently because of your pregnancy, a person's pregnancy is illegal. Same thing with religion. If I'm treated differently because I'm a Christian or because I'm Jewish, everybody else gets a certain benefit except for the Jews. That would be treating that employee differently because of their religion. So, and there are other classifications. These are the primary ones. And so our EEO policy, and I think it's on your quiz, equal employment opportunity policy, is we don't make employment decisions, hiring, firing, paying the rates of pay that we're going to pay someone based on any protected category, and they're all listed there. And this will be the core of what we talk about today. So think about these categories and these kinds of employment decisions. We'll be coming back to it over and over again today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is discrimination. And for sure, I know this is on your test. I'm going to give you the answer right now. I think it's one of your first questions, but the question is, what is discrimination? Well, that might sound like an essay question because it's so broad, it could be so many different things, but it's not. It's a very simple definition. Unlawful discrimination is the treating of people differently regarding any condition, any term or condition of employment because of their protected category. So if we jump back to the other slide, if we make any of these employment decisions down there in the red, if we make any of those employment decisions based on any of the protected categories that are listed above, that is the definition of discrimination. That means that we will have treated someone differently regarding a term or condition of employment because of their protected characteristic, flat out discrimination. So what are some examples of that? So, I mentioned religion is a protected category. So let's say a Jewish employee applies for work, and we say, no, we're not looking for anyone. Well, they know we're looking for someone because there's an ad on the internet, and somebody else comes in the following day who's a Christian and they get hired. Well, the presumption is going to be you didn't hire me because I'm Jewish. That is treating me differently because of one of my protected characteristics, and that is the textbook definition of discrimination. So on your quiz, the answer is, what is discrimination? The treating a person differently because of one of their protected characteristics. That's your answer. Another example would be, the end of the year comes around and I want to give bonuses, but I just think the guys were a little more proactive this year than the women. So only the guys get bonuses. That's treating them differently because of their characteristic. Or the women who didn't get the bonus, I'm treating them differently because of their characteristic. They didn't get the raise. Why? Or the bonus because they were women. Or if I decide I've got to do a layoff, I've just got, business is down, I've got to lay off employees. Let's just lay off all the people over 40. They're not as productive, they're not as energetic. Let's just get rid of them. We've got a business reason. We can show that business is down and we're going to do a reduction in force. Let's just make sure it's all the people over 40. That's treating that group of people differently because of their protected characteristic. And what is that, Summer? That is discrimination. Okay, let's move on. Why does it even matter? We've established that Title VII prohibits discrimination based on these protected categories that we've probably belabored, and state law protects even more characteristics. So it matters because it's illegal to do that, right? The law says we can't do that. So that's the first thing. It's illegal. But it's not just that. It's not just that it's illegal. It's also extremely harmful to the victim. It's first of all, it's treating them differently because of something they can't control. And so what do they do about that? They say, you know what, that's wrong. That's illegal for you to treat me differently because one of my ingrained characteristics that I can't change. So what do? Well, I'm probably going to sue you. And what does that mean? You see this guy with his bugged out eyes when he sees the bills. I mean, I know each one of you that are managers would rather see, you know, your business that you're in charge of be profitable. Wouldn't you rather pay bonuses than attorney's fees? I can assure you, you would, because I know for sure when a certain subsidiary gets sued, that subsidiary itself pays the attorney's fees. And one major lawsuit can wipe out profits of a year for the whole year. So we don't want to discriminate against people because it's illegal. It's very harmful to that person, and it can cost you so much money that you did all your work that year and you're paying lawyers rather than bonuses. So that's why it matters. But the biggest, not the biggest, but one of the biggest reasons is that it's really, really bad for morale. I mean, imagine how it would feel to be treated differently because of a characteristic you can't control. You see this lady at the bottom of the slide, she's being ostracized by her coworkers because she's not part of the boys club, right? That probably feels really bad if you've ever been in a situation like that, you know, or if you have social groups at work based on religion. Well, of course, you're going to gravitate towards people that are similar to you. But to treat people differently because of something they can't control, like the religion that they were born into, or their community, their ethnic practices, you know, their color of their skin or the texture of their hair, that just makes people feel bad. And those people that get treated differently because of that feel really bad, but then they also feel mad. And that's when they have to either quit or sue or both. Sometimes it's both. So these are all reasons that we want to stay compliant with our policy, which absolutely prohibits discrimination in any kind of employment-based decision, which is everything, by the way, based on a protected characteristic. It's illegal, it's harmful to the victim, it's really bad for morale, and it can be very, very expensive. So, and it's not just discrimination, right? Not only do we have a duty to treat our employees the same, irrespective of what their protected characteristics are, but the law also requires us to sometimes make reasonable accommodations for employees. And what does that mean to make an accommodation? It means that sometimes the law will require us to change the way things are customarily done so that we can help an employee that might have a disability or some other kind of condition. Like example, we'll talk about pregnant employees in a little bit, so that we can enable them to do their job. You know, the law may require us to make an accommodation. Before we move on to the next slide, summarize, are people texting questions? Have you gotten any questions?
One question, I think some are putting in the chat. Does anyone? No. Okay.
Okay, well, don't forget to text your questions, and we'll move on with accommodations. So the Americans with Disabilities Act is the law that requires an employer to provide a reasonable accommodation to those employees that are able to perform the essential functions of their job. So these essentially are the core tasks that they have to do to do their job. For example, a cocktail waitress has to be able to carry drinks, right? So that would be an essential function of the job. A valet person would have to be able to drive a car, right? These are essential functions of the job. A lawyer has to have a law degree, right? These are all things that are essential functions. You know, it's not, can you wear high heels? That's not an essential function of a waitress's job. That's just, can she wear the uniform or not? Let's say she can't wear high heels because of a foot deformity. Well, can she still perform the essential functions of her job? Yeah, she just can't wear those shoes. So I may have to, pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act, change the way we normally do things so that I can accommodate her ability, because she's able, with or without a reasonable accommodation, to do the job. She can deliver the drinks. She just can't wear the shoes. So that's kind of an example of accommodations that we would have to make. For example, if there was a cocktail waitress that was missing a limb, for example, missing an arm, well, maybe she can't carry the drinks. Well, what kind of accommodation am I going to have to give her, if anything, her or him? It depends, right? So let's move on. The ADA requires, did you move to the next slide? Yeah. Sorry. Oh, okay. So an accommodation will have to be provided to this employee if, let's just stick with the waitress idea. If she says, well, I can deliver drinks and I have a lot of experience and I can wear the shoes, but I only have one arm. So if you gave me a push cart so that I could deliver the drinks with the push cart, is that reasonable? Because the law requires that the accommodation has to be reasonable. Is that reasonable? Probably a court would say, yes, that's reasonable, unless there's a safety concern or something. But what if she said, well, I need an electronic vehicle so that I can deliver the drinks because this club is huge and I have to cover a lot of territory? Well, we would engage in what we call the interactive process, which means you tell me, what are your limitations? What would you like me to try to do? And I'll tell you what I'm willing to do, what I think is reasonable for me to do. And that'll depend on, you know, the size of the employer, the amount of resources they have, whether it's too expensive or whether it's something that they should be able to do without any problem. If we have somebody that applies for a job as a receptionist, but she's hard of hearing, it's probably reasonable for us to get a telephone that you can turn the volume up on, or that can do a readout of what the calls are. The law would expect us to do that. Is it reasonable for us to hire another employee to interpret the calls for this person? No, that wouldn't be reasonable. But the best thing for you to take from this is that sometimes the law will, if a person has the requisite skills, the education and the experience to do the job, but they need some little accommodation, or some could maybe not so little accommodation, we must engage in a discussion to see if we're able to provide that accommodation. So it's not just employees with disabilities that the law requires us to accommodate anymore. Pregnant workers now are required to be accommodated under a new law called the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Now you might be asking yourself, why do I need another law, you know, to protect pregnant workers? Title VII already protects workers from discrimination based on gender, right? And ADA, we just talked about, already protects employees against discrimination based on pregnancy if it's any kind of a disability related to a pregnancy, like if somebody has eclampsia or what do we call gestational diabetes, you know, other kinds of disabilities that are associated with pregnancies. The ADA would require that we not discriminate against them for that, would require an accommodation as well. Family Medical Leave Act already provides job protected leave for pregnant workers. So why do we need another law? It's because, like I said, this law was passed in 2003. It just became effective this year. The thing that's better about this law than the others, it applies to even small employers, 15 employees or less, where the Family Medical Leave Act, for example, you must have at least 50 employees before that law is even applicable to you. And it covers more than just gender discrimination, like Title VII does. It requires an accommodation, and it covers more than the ADA. So the ADA said, okay, yeah, I'm not going to, let's see, so disability. So the Americans with Disabilities Act might require an accommodation for a pregnant employee that is suffering from some sort of disability. But what about pregnant women that don't have a disability and they just need an accommodation? Well, this new law, we call it the PWFA is the acronym. The PWFA requires that we provide accommodations, reasonable accommodations to all pregnant employees that just have any kind of quote limitation due to their pregnancy. So it doesn't have to be a medically certified disability. Any limitation they might have due to their pregnancy, and it's generally obviously temporary limitations. So one of the recent cases that was just went to our state Supreme Court was a pregnant woman. She was very petite. She was about 7 months along, but she was huge. I think she was having twins. And she just couldn't bend down to the lowest level of the filing system that they have and file the files. And she said, you know, just while I'm pregnant, I need you to maybe remove that from my duties. I just can't do it. It's really making me uncomfortable and I can't get down there. And, you know, after I have the baby, I'll be fine. I can do it. And the employer said, no, if you can't do your job, I'm just going to put you on leave, unpaid leave, by the way, until you have the baby and then you can come back. But the law requires us to accommodate that person. And what kind of accommodations does the law require us to give pregnant employees or almost anybody with a disability? But this particular law requires that we give pregnant employees maybe longer breaks, more frequent breaks, restroom breaks, maybe the ability to work from home so there's less commuting. Obviously, we would have to change our uniform. We couldn't say, no, you either wear that uniform or you're not working here. If someone's pregnant, we have to make that kind of accommodation for them. We have to provide time off for doctor's appointments that might require a schedule change. And then this one relates to our file clerk, a temporary suspension of one or more of the essential functions of that job. So that our file clerk example, she could still do all of her other functions, all of her other clerical functions. She could file on the higher shelves. She just couldn't do one little thing. And the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act would require that we suspend that essential function of that job until after she had her baby. So unlike the Family Medical Leave Act or the Americans with Disabilities Act, there are no magic words that are needed. It's our job to recognize that, look, this person is obviously pregnant. I don't need a certification telling me she's pregnant. She's obviously pregnant. She's obviously struggling. Let me engage in that same interactive process that we talked about with the ADA and see what we can do to help. It doesn't mean that we have to grant the very first request, but we do have to engage in that dialogue and see what we can do to help so that they can perform the essential functions of their job. So what we've covered so far is that under Title VII, we can't treat people differently because of their protected characteristic, or that is what? Discrimination. And we can't treat people differently because of a disability, because under the Americans with Disabilities Act, that's a violation of the law. And we can't refuse to accommodate limitations that are recognized under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So a disability rather, and we also cannot refuse to accommodate pregnant workers under the PWFA. And So is that it? Is that all I need to know? Is that pretty much the universe of things that we have to avoid doing with, or else possibly break the law? No, it's not. We also cannot harass people because of one of their protected characteristics. Excuse me 1 second. Allergies here in Las Vegas. I should be drinking this alcohol armor, but probably give me too much energy, right, Summer? Doesn't feel like anything's in here. Oh, that's the empty one. All right. So unlawful harassment is similar. It's a subset of discrimination. Harassment is a form of discrimination. It's also treating people differently because of one of their protected characteristics, but it's slightly different. Unlawful harassment is defined, and this is also a question on your test. So jot this down if you want to get 100 on your test. Unlawful harassment is the engaging in any kind of verbal, visual, or physical behavior that's unwanted behavior due to somebody's protected characteristics. So like gender, race, religion, all the ones we've discussed. So it's not treating people differently because of their characteristic. It's engaging in conduct, whether it's verbal, visual, or physical, because of someone's protected characteristic. So this could be something that's just denigrating, something trying to embarrass someone. It could be showing hostility or aversion. Maybe you have a Sikh worker in your environment that wears a headdress to work, and all you do is mimic them or make jokes. That could be denigrating. Let's say somebody has a handicap, they have a limp, and you just, try to make fun of them, and the whole office is walking with a limp to denigrate them, make them feel bad. Or it's not necessarily showing hostility. Maybe you're in love with one of the people that you work with, and you're just always being amorous, telling them constantly how nice they look, or joking around, oh, please go out with me. And then when somebody reports it, you say, I was just joking. All these things are types of behavior that can be considered unlawful harassment because they're all done as a result of someone's protected characteristic, right? You're showing hostility to the Sikh because of their religion. You're showing, you're doing romantic jokes to someone because of their gender. You're showing aversion to a race that you have, some sort of animus against. That's also based on somebody's characteristic. And you do it to the point that it is so severe and pervasive that it creates an intimidating and offensive or hostile work environment that makes it so somebody just doesn't want to come to work anymore. That you make an environment that is so on fire with animus, that is so uncomfortable to walk into, that you start breaking out into a little sweat as you park your car and start walking into your place of employment. You think, oh my God, now I'm going to have to be in this environment that makes me extremely uncomfortable. Just because they don't like me because of my religion or my race. The law has said that if this is so pervasive and so severe that an employee feels so intimidated that they don't want to come to work, you've created a hostile work environment, because this is behavior based on someone's protected characteristic, and it's a form of discrimination. So I'm going to tell you about a case that was probably the first hostile work environment case that was ever, maybe we'll go back to the other slide, that was ever made it to the US Supreme Court, and I call it the Carpenter's case. And what happened was there was a woman, her father was a carpenter, her grandfather was a carpenter, came from a long line of carpenters. She was so proud to go to carpenter school, and she became a journeyman, and she got a job, and she couldn't wait to go to work with her tool belt, and she was very skilled. She got, she was a journeyman. She passed all the tests, And she walked into this wood shop, and all the guys just stopped what they were doing, looked at her, started jeering, started saying, catcalling, whistling, saying, who's this? What's going on? And that was day one, and it continued for an entire year. The guys put up posters of naked women in their lunchroom. They would, if they got assigned to work with her, they would drop their tools in front of her so that she would have to bend over and pick them up, and then they would make comments about her anatomy. They assigned her the hardest jobs there was to do, punking big piles of wood that they would make her do, and then they would all sit, not help. They help each other, but they wouldn't help her. And they got some sort of, they amused themselves by watching her struggle. She went to her boss. It took a long time because she tried to swallow it. She said, look, I know. And this was when the act was first promulgated. And so this was in the 80s. She's like, well, I took a job in a man's environment. What did I expect? I've got to toughen up and grow a thicker skin. And she couldn't do it. She got to the point that she could not walk into the shop without breaking out into hives. And because she was so upset and so nervous and so embarrassed by them making fun of her. Why? Because of her gender, her protected characteristic. So she finally went to the boss and she said, this is just awful. What can I do? I'm not going to quit. This is my dream job. I would disappoint my father, my grandfather. I've studied for years. This is all I've ever wanted to do. And her boss said exactly what she knew he would say. She said, he said, I don't know what you expected when you came to work here, but boys will be boys. And this is just the way it is. So you don't have to work here, but if you're going to work here, this is your environment. So finally, it got to the point that she was physically sick. She physically could not go to work. And, she finally sued the company. And the court said, when you create an environment that is so intimidating, so offensive, and so hostile that somebody can't even bring themselves to go to work, you've created an unlawful work environment, and that's a violation of Title VII. That's a form of discrimination, and the company had to pay. And because the company was told about it and took no action, they even awarded punitive damages in the case. It was really, it was a newsmaking day when this decision came down, because everybody was shocked, and that set the tone for the world we live in today. And so, what are our company's views of a hostile work environment? We have zero tolerance for every form of discrimination, including harassment. Based on any protected category or otherwise. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But that's for you managers and supervisors, it's your job to look out for an environment like that, to make sure that you control the work environment so that that type of a pervasive, intimidating and offensive work environment is never created. And it's the employees' jobs that are working in that environment to report it immediately so that we can make corrections, because we have a zero tolerance policy for that kind of behavior. All right, let's move on. And so what about vendors? This is also a question on your quiz. What if, we understand what our duties are to our employees, right? No discrimination, no harassment. What if our vendors, or what about a guest, a guest in one of our businesses? What if it's a nightclub and one of the guests is constantly pulling on the uniform of one of the waitresses, or constantly asking a waitress out after she said, no, please, I'm a married woman, please don't ask me out again? Or what if it's a vendor that walks into your place of business and says, and starts hitting on one of your employees? That is not permitted by our policy either. It's not just the companies that are not allowed to harass or discriminate against employees. We're not going to allow third-party vendors or guests or anyone from the outside to do that either. So my recommendation is you have a vendor that I used the example earlier of the plumber that came into the building once a week, and every time he came in, there was a male receptionist, and he would just glare at him and leer at him and ask him out. He got to the point that he would touch him on the shoulders, just trying to give him a back rub, or, oh, your hair looks really nice today. The employee was really disturbed by the conduct, told the employer did nothing. And it's not a violation of Title VII to do nothing, it's just negligence. You've created an environment that is unsafe for your employees. You didn't protect them. They came to work. All they wanted to do was a good job for a fair wage, and you subjected them to this harassment. Our policy provides that we do not countenance this type of behavior from our guests or our vendors. So my advice is, you see this, you admonish them once, it continues, you ask them to leave, or you discontinue your business association, because our primary goal, our primary obligation is to create a work environment for our employees where they feel safe and protected. Because when they feel that way, what do? They give our guests an unmatched guest experience, and then then you profit and prosper, and all boats rise with high tides. So that's a question on your quiz. Is third-party harassment okay? No, it's not. We do not condone it, and we prohibit it. All right. So there's several types of harassment, right? We talked about discrimination. We talked about generally harassment, which is unwelcome visual, verbal, or physical conduct.
Let's go. See the Pokemon section. It's all right.
Based on a protected characteristic. Well, the harassment based on gender or sexual harassment is the most common type of harassment that we see in every workplace, not just the ones here in our companies, but in every workplace. Sexual harassment is by far the most common form of harassment that is found in workplaces. And it's the same description as when we talk about harassment based on religion or a handicap or a disability. This one is just based on gender. So the idea is, you wouldn't be treating me this way if I wasn't of the gender that I am, and that makes it unlawful conduct. And like I said, it has to be severe and pervasive, but if it's bad enough, doing something once, like an assault, a sexual assault, doesn't have to be severe and pervasive. One time, that's all it takes. And the law's been broken. So there are two different kinds of sexual harassment when you're thinking about it and managing your job sites and when you're working within those job sites. One is called quid pro quo harassment, sexual harassment. The other one is hostile work environment. So quid pro quo, we talked about, quid pro quo, I wish you were here. We need to put this on the test, it is on the test. This is another answer to the test. What does quid pro quo mean? It means this for that. That's a Latin term meaning this for that. In other words, I'll give you this if you give me that. And in the sexual harassment context, you can see from the little guy with the beard, if you escort me to the ball on Saturday, I will give you next week off. So if you do a sexual favor for me, I'll give you some kind of reward at work. That's quid pro quo sexual harassment, and it's illegal. The other one is hostile work environment that we just talked about. It's just based on gender. So the Carpenter case is the perfect example of sexual harassment. That's a work environment that was created solely because of that worker's gender. And that's hostile work environment based on gender, sexual harassment. So it's not just men harassing women or women harassing men, because there's plenty of cases where women are harassing men in the workplace. It's usually a woman boss that's flirting with her male underling, and those facts can establish a prima facie case of sex discrimination or harassment, just like men on women can. But it's not just opposite genders that this law applies to. Men can sexually harass men, and women can sexually harass women. So, and it's happened in our own company. We have plenty of men complaining about sexual harassment coming from other men. I don't think I've had one with women, but it works the same way. So just because you know, it used to be in the olden days, you would say, well, that's not harassment. It's a guy and you're a guy. He's not trying to, you know, harass you because of your gender. Well, the law's changed and the world's changed, and same-sex harassment is recognized under the law, irrespective of the identity of the perpetrator. So I think the message here is to just treat your work environment like what it is, a professional business that we want to create, where people can come and do an honest day's work for an honest day's wage. Everyone feels fulfilled. They feel like they're pursuing their career. They feel that they can be successful, and they don't have to come to work and feel trepidation about walking into the work site, because it's our company's policy that we will not allow that kind of work environment to continue, whether it's based on sex or any other protected category. And it's not just men and women either that our policies protect. Our policy in this company is that every employee is protected under the law. Every employee is entitled to work in a safe and respective workplace, irrespective of what that employee's proclivities are. It's a safe zone, and that's what we want to make sure it stays. So whether an employee is transgender, gender non-conforming, gender neutral, binary, I don't know all the words, but no matter how they are oriented or how they see themselves, we respect them for who they are. For example, when it comes to restrooms, this is a big controversy in the legal world these days. Employers are like, do I have to have a third restroom for non-conforming employees? Well, and then do I need one for you know, people that are binary, non-binary? What do I do? This company has solved this problem in what I think is the most admirable and probably easiest way to deal with it, which is, where possible, we have facilities, restroom facilities, that are gender neutral. Hopefully most of you have that, and if not, then our company policy is that an employee, irrespective of who they are allowed to use the restroom that aligns with their gender preference. End of story. So if we had an audience here, I would like to hear what you're experiencing in the workplace when it comes to the rapid pace that the world is changing in. But we've always been a very inclusive company. We pride ourselves on the diversity that we have in this company, and anybody that is treated differently because they are, quote, different, will not be condoned. And it's not just illegal conduct that this company will not countenance. We also have an anti-bullying policy, which you guys know because you've read your handbooks, or you're going to find out when you read your handbook. But what is bullying? Bullying is essentially harassment that's not based on a protected category, right? Or it's it's harassment based on a protected category that doesn't rise to that severe and pervasive level to make it illegal, right? It's just hostility without the protected category requirement. So if you're just a jerk, right? Let's say I eat peanut butter sandwiches every day for lunch. And every day you walk by my desk and you say, oh, I can smell the peanut butter, or here's peanut butter breath, or, you know, who would eat peanut butter? You know, they're mashed up legumes. You know, this is basically creating hostility, not because of my protected categories, but because of my personal choice. Can't really put it in any kind of illegal box. It's just prohibited because why? We have a no jerk policy. We don't want to employ jerks. You heard Jason tell you, we want to plan parties. We don't want to plan ways to harm people or to treat them differently because they might be different, or to make them feel bad about any aspect of themselves. We have this catch-all policy that it just says you can't be a jerk and work here. And so remember that, you know, we expect people to treat each other with dignity and respect. And if you're not being treated that way at work, then you call that hotline, or you talk to your boss and you make sure that whatever the problem is getting remedied, because the company does not condone that kind of behavior. We have a policy that absolutely prohibits it. We expect managers and supervisors to ensure that their employees are always treated with kindness and respect, and that they're treated fairly. And I think everybody knows that. That's what makes it so beautiful of a company to work for. And so again, I keep, we've talked a couple times about the complaint procedure. We can't tell you often enough. Nobody has to suffer in silence in this company. And it's not just call if you want to. It is mandatory. If you witness or experience or just learn about somebody who has been treated in violation of one of our policies, it's your job to report it, either to a manager or your supervisor, or if you don't want to do that, then call one of these hotlines that you see on the screen, or text a note to info@clubconcerns.com or GoBESTlistens.com. Let's move on. We need to encourage, like I'm doing today, encouraging you to report behaviors that are unacceptable. It's not just the right thing to do. Our policy requires it. So just know, if you're a supervisor or a manager, that ignoring complaints do not make them go away. I can't tell you how many times when complaints make their way to me or one of the other lawyers in the company, things have gotten pretty bad. You know, it could have probably been nipped in the bud. The problem probably could have been nipped in the bud somewhere along the way. If the proper report was made, but people don't want to report things. They want you to think everything is just fine. And we know things aren't always just fine. This is a work environment. We know it's not easy to please everybody all the time. So if you're a manager or a supervisor, or even you're an employee experiencing any kind of unacceptable conduct, ignoring it is not going to make it go away. And the company cannot resolve a problem that it does not know about. So of course, we would like to see problems solved early on. This is also one of your questions. Does a manager have to report a problem every time he or she hears about one? And the answer is no. I mean, if this is, we had a situation where an employee had a picture of a cat hanging by the neck by a rope, taped to her computer. An employee said to his manager, that really bothers me. I'm a cat lover, and that just really bothers me. I can't stand to walk by that desk. That's just really so violent, and I just don't like it. Well, did that manager have to call one of the company lawyers, or type a complaint to GoBEST Listens or Club Info, no. He could just simply do what? Tell them to take the picture down. Problem solved. So, but if the manager's not able to solve problems in the initial stages, or if it's a very serious complaint, something involving discrimination or harassment, especially sexual harassment, that manager needs to file that complaint with the through one of the hotlines, or through his or her direct report. But ignoring the complaint will not make it go away. And the worst part of it, or the thing that really grab your attention the most, failure to report something that you witnessed, experienced, or heard about could result in discipline up to and including termination all by itself. So reporting is mandatory. Don't feel bad about it. We've talked about the no retaliation. It's required. And I've seen people terminated for sitting on a complaint or trying to hide it or claiming it never happened, because by the time we get through it, it's probably a big problem that takes lots of time and lots of money to solve, and it could have been resolved very easily in the early stages. So I guess we're really trying to hammer this point. Do not discourage employees from lodging complaints, managers and supervisors. Show them how to do it. We can't solve a problem till we know about it. And what happens when a complaint makes its way to one of the company lawyers? Well, the first thing we do is investigate it. Please, as managers and supervisors, don't try to investigate it yourself. Don't try to, try to make the problem, try to resolve the problem by yourself, but those are the easy ones, the ones where you can take down a photograph of the kitty on the computer. But somebody tells you they're being sexually harassed at work, you just immediately advise that employee to make a complaint through the company hotline, and then you do it yourself as well, because it's your duty, it's your responsibility, and the policy requires it. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have any role to play. You certainly do. As a manager, you have to preserve the evidence, because by the time I or one of the other lawyers get a complaint, maybe months have gone by. It could take a year before we get a lawsuit. And by then, surveillance has been taped over. The people that we need to file statements are no longer with us. For some reason, nobody filed an incident report, and we've got nothing to go on except the plaintiff's version of what happened, and we've got nothing. So the manager and supervisor's job is to, of course, somebody files a complaint with you, you file an incident report, you get the statements you can, you preserve the surveillance. If you don't know how to do that, make sure you talk to the surveillance team, because surveillance does get copied over. We have lost lawsuits in the past because we couldn't prove, we know we didn't do anything wrong, but we don't have any surveillance to prove it. And now all we have is the plaintiff's version of what happened. So message to supervisors and managers, advise your employees to report, you report it yourself, and then preserve all the evidence you can. Then when the lawyers receive the complaint, it'll be investigated and remedial action will be taken, whatever the appropriate remedial action is. Sometimes that's nothing. Sometimes we say, you know what? I don't think, there's anything here. We can't figure out, we can't find any evidence that this actually happened. So, there's nothing that we can do. We just don't think any action is required. It might be that someone gets written up. It might be that someone has to take this class again. It might be that somebody's suspended for a period of time, or it might be somebody's terminated. It might be the police are called. I don't know. But whatever the appropriate remedial action is, that's what will be taken. And we try our best to get back to the person that initiated the complaint, whether it's the manager or the employee, to let them know how it was resolved. And I think this is another question on your quiz. Can employees file anonymous complaints? It's kind of a complicated answer. So of course they can file anonymous complaints, right? That's what the hotline and that's what the websites are for. You know, you can let us know what's going on. You don't have to use your name. Of course, anonymous complaints are not as credible as complaints where people want to identify themselves. But people that make anonymous complaints, we've given them the tools to do so, and we look into every complaint that's made. That's an anonymous complaint. That's one thing. Now, if somebody comes to you and as a manager, for example, and says, you know, my boss has been asking me out since I got hired, and I tell him I'm married, I tell him I'm not interested. Every day I see him, he asks me out again. He tells me how much fun I'm missing. And, you know, he's now starting to give me back rubs and touching my hair. And it's really, really awful. I don't want you to do anything about it. I'm just telling you so that you know if anything happens. I'm just, please, please, please don't tell anyone I'm telling you. I just want you to know. Well, can you keep that anonymous? Can you do what that employee asked you to do and not tell anyone about it? Absolutely not. And you have to tell the employee that. You have to say, I'm sorry. You had a duty to tell me what's going on, and now I have a duty to report this. And this will be investigated and the appropriate action will be taken. I know that the company will do the very, very best it can to shield your identity, but I can't promise you that people won't learn what's happened, or that, you know, the predator that you're telling us about won't learn. We have to investigate it. It's our legal duty. We're going to do our best to protect you, but what I can promise you is that no action will be taken against you because you were brave enough to come to us and tell us. And I can promise you that this will be resolved. Whether that means removing that manager from the workplace or whatever it means. There are thousands of different variables. You can give the employee all kinds of assurances that no action will be taken against them. We've talked about retaliation. We don't condone it. But you can never, as a manager or supervisor, not report something because an employee asks you to. So making an anonymous complaint is one thing. They can do that on the hotline. But if someone comes to you and says, please don't tell anyone, you have to say, I'm very sorry. I will do everything in my power to protect you, but I must report this. Again, the one thing you can promise them is no retaliation. Don't forget the hotlines. Don't forget all the ways you have to communicate with everyone here. Now these are legitimate complaints, right? This is also on your quiz. If employees make fake or false complaints, can they do that with impunity? Can they do that? Are you also going to protect the guys who file malicious complaints? And believe me, it's happened. It's happened a lot in our companies here. That's another form of retaliation, right? Somebody, and sometimes it's a matter of creating a diversion. Sometimes it's deflection. You know, sometimes it's not uncommon for employees to be on the verge of being terminated, and a manager will have a meeting with that employee, and the employer will say, well, I don't know why you're worried about my attendance. You know, that guy has been making sexual advancements to me since I've been hired here. And it's really gotten ugly because now he's sending me emails at home and saying all kinds of things that I find objectionable. Oh, well, now you filed a complaint. It's not going to shield you from being terminated if that was justified at the time. But thank you for telling us. You had a duty to tell us long before now. But now you've told us, and now I'm going to launch an investigation. and it turns out not to be true. There's no evidence. There's no emails. There's nothing supporting the employee's allegation. Well, people that have a good faith belief in what they're telling us, if they tell us, I really believe this happened. I know that there's an employee over there that's being harassed, and she just won't come to you. But I've heard about it, and I know I have a duty under our policy to tell you. And it turns out they're wrong. It turns out that was never going on. As long as they had a good faith belief in the truth of the matter asserted, we say in the law, the truth of the matter asserted. If they came to us and told us something they believed was true, we will never take action against them, even if it turns out that it's not true. But if somebody makes a false or malicious claim in a way to kind of reverse retaliate, and it happens. It happens. People are dating and they break up, and suddenly rumors start about one or the other, and it turns out to be false. This is just a form of intentionally harming someone. If we find out that we have employees that have engaged in that kind of behavior, they too will be the basis for discipline and likely termination. So we will handle that the same way we handle legitimate complaints. So now now you know everything about discrimination and harassment. We're going to turn to a few just quickly policies that the company has that are basically enacted to prevent unacceptable behavior. And again, these are in your handbooks. And there's a couple of questions that have to do with these policies, but we're going to talk about nepotism, whether it's a good idea to hire your family members, work with your family members. We're going to talk about workplace relationships, whether it's a good idea to date people you're working with, especially people you supervise. And we're going to talk about social media. Does what I do on my off time matter to the company? And we're going to talk about basic standards of conduct. So I know we're almost out of time, but nepotism is when we decide we're going to hire family members and people say, well, my dad is the best carpenter on the planet and we need a handyman around here and I want to hire him. Why is that a bad idea? It's a bad idea because it creates the appearance of impropriety. People are like, well, yeah, it's her dad. She's not going to discipline him. Or yeah, he gets overtime, but I don't. It just looks like there's preferential treatment going on, and it's kind of justified because people think, well, of course you're going to treat your family member better than you're treating me. We have plenty of managers that have hired their children, they've hired their parents, they've hired their siblings, and it always creates problems because it just, even if there isn't something going on that's inappropriate, it creates the appearance of it. So do we absolutely prohibit it? No. Do we strongly discourage it? Yes. A manager or owner of a company can certainly make exceptions to policies. It's been done in the past, but it's frowned upon because it creates a conflict. And what's a conflict? A conflict is when you've got two masters, right? I've got my father who's working for me, kind of my master, but then I have the person who owns the company. He's also my master. Well, am I working for him? Am I working for the company's best interest? Or am I trying to do what's best for my father? Now inside me, I've got this conflict going on and I shouldn't have it at all. And I could avoid it and just honor my duty to the company if I avoid hiring that family member. So that's nepotism, not a good idea. Not 100% prohibited either. It's a discussion that has to be had if it seems like a good idea. That kind of takes us to relationships. So it's perfectly understandable when somebody says, I spend 6 days a week here. I spend 8 hours a day here. Who am I going to date if it's not my coworkers? Who else do I know? Who else do I spend this much time with? What time do I have to meet anyone else? That's understandable, right? But for all the reasons that you don't want to hire relatives, you don't want to date coworkers, especially if you're a supervisor supervising that person's work, because it creates not only a conflict of interest that we just talked about, not only the appearance of impropriety, all the coworkers are going to think, oh, well, that person's getting preferential treatment, getting all the best shifts, getting the best stations where the highest tips are, because they're sleeping with the boss, of course. You know, whether that's true or not, that's what they think. And you've allowed them to do that by bringing your, dating someone that's under your supervision or that you work with. So the company, it also creates an environment for sexual harassment complaints, because what is a consensual relationship today? As soon as there's a little rip in that heart, it's suddenly not a consensual relationship. And then whoever the spurned party is says, I was only in that relationship because she said I would get fired if I didn't agree to date her or sleep with her or live with her. It just creates an environment for sexual harassment complaints and an abuse of employees, because now you've added a relationship to when you could just come to work and do your job duties. Now your whole home life is in the middle of the business. So the company has created what it feels like is the best solution. First of all, the company discourages relationships between people who are working together. It prohibits relationships against between people who are a supervisor and an employee. Now, can there be exceptions to these situations? Yes. If any of you are in such a relationship, your responsibility is tomorrow morning to call your boss and let them know, or call HR and let them know. And then you'll be asked to sign a relationship agreement. What's a relationship agreement? Well, it's an agreement that acknowledges the consensual nature of the relationship. And it also gets both parties to agree that if this relationship ever changes or becomes non-consensual, you'll let us know, because then we can take action to protect you. And that's how we deal with relationships. I think the last thing we really want to talk about today is social media. The company is very aware that this is the 21st century, and everyone communicates with each other through the internet and other electronic platforms. We know that. But you need to remember, each and every one of you, that you're employees of the company, whether you're on the clock or off the clock. If your behavior off the clock can bring harm, and this is a question on your test, by the way, if your conduct on the internet, if your social media conduct can bring harm to a coworker, so you're on your Facebook page, or do people still use Facebook? If you're posting things on this Instagram or TikTok or wherever, the modern people go, I'll ask Summer to point me in the right direction. If you're posting things on social media that criticize a coworker or make fun of them or belittle them, or in any way harms a coworker or any employee of the company, or it has the propensity to harm the company's business interests, or you're creating potential liability for the company by sending text messages with sexual or racial overtones, it's no defense to any of these allegations to say, you know what, I did that on my personal computer when I was off work. You can't regulate my off time. Completely wrong. If first of all, we feel like, especially managers are are managers and supervisors of the company 24/7, but employees are employees of the company 24/7. And if you're using social media to harm each other or to harm the company, of course, this doesn't apply to activity that might be considered concerted activity. But if you are doing things maliciously to harm coworkers, you can be sure that we're going to take action in your employment because you've taken action to harm somebody else's ability to do their job, and that will not be condoned by the company. So be careful with social media. You are a representative of your company 24/7. When people look at you, they could see the company, and there's no way to divorce yourself from that identity. And what you do can affect the company 24/7, and it will be monitored if you do anything with the intent to bring harm to the company or a coworker. If it has a negative impact on the company or a coworker, we will consider it something that is our business. You telling us it's not our business will not fly. So with that said, we've basically gone over the general standards of conduct that your company expects of you. Just remember that violation of any of the policies could lead to termination discipline up to and including termination. The policies that we've gone over today about discrimination and bullying and harassment, the anti-jerk policy, that's not an inclusive list. That's just the ones that we picked to talk to you about today. Violation of any company policy. We write the policies because we want to have a work environment where, now I'm going to turn into Jason Money, where people want to come to work and have fun. That's what we are. We're in the entertainment business. So we've put together policies that not only force compliance with the law, but also make it a fun, we hope, create a work environment where people enjoy coming to work and where they feel comfortable and safe, and where they will prosper and can grow a career and flourish. So in summary, I would just say, again, please go home and read the handbook that you got the first day of your employment. Understand your policies, because the policies are your roadmap to success. Managers and supervisors cannot do your job if you do not know what the company's policies are. Part of your job is to enforce the policies. You can't do that if you don't know what they are. And your job as an employee is to comply with the policies, and you can't do that either if you don't know what they are. So the policies are designed to engender respect and dignity for all of our employees. Make sure you read them and know what they are. Other important message I want to convey today is to report conduct that you find offensive. No harm will come to you. There will never be retaliation or any kind of punishment imparted because somebody had the courage to file a complaint, unless it's one of those malicious complaints that we talked about. Other than that, don't forget, the hotline numbers, the other email addresses that you can communicate with all of us through. And don't forget to complete your quiz, because you now know every single answer. I've literally given you a 2 or 3 sentence answer to every. Some questions are answered with 1 word. Otherwise, it's a 2 or 3. It's a sentence or 2 at the very most. Complete those, because I'm probably coming back next week after we review your answers, and we'll see how you did. It's like an open book test. Come on. You have all the answers. All right. Summer, did we get any questions?
Yes, I have a couple.
Come on up.
Just a couple. I have to show off this really cool jacket
Miss Summer,
from
everyone.
Bar and Restaurant.
I don't want to, now that I
Look at this.
told you can't touch hair. Isn't that cute? That's a super cute outfit.
It says GoBEST and premium. And it's hot pink. I don't know if you can tell.
It's very, very cute.
Very
All
bright.
right.
The first one.
One rule,
these are
don't
two.
ask me questions that I don't know the answer to.
Okay,
Other
we'll
than that-
ask and see if you know the answer yet. If you If we don't know,
We'll get back
we'll
to
let
you.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll let you know next month when we get together again.
So the first one is, would a mental health issue be considered a protection under medical conditions? Or like
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about the
hospitalization?
Americans with Disabilities Act, and come in a little. No biting here. The Americans with Disabilities Act protects folks from discrimination based on their disability, whether it's physical, like somebody walking with a limp, or mental, somebody that has a mental condition. Both of those types of disabilities are protected. Yes.
And what if you had to take time off for that? Could you be fired for missing work? And
It's all conditional upon the facts and the circumstances existing, but it's possible to get medical leave for a condition like that. Yes.
okay, and then this is a good one about the gender neutral bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
What about women who have been assaulted in those situations, and how do you keep women safe in that environment?
Yeah, people, you hear about these kinds of things on certain news programs, people getting assaulted in, transgender people assaulting women in the women's restroom, or, some variation of that allegation. I personally have been doing training classes for employers for years and years, and have never ever heard of a real life example where that's ever happened. But so, if it does happen, you have to immediately report it. If you don't feel comfortable using a restroom because of our broad policy, then I think let your manager know, and we'll see what kind of accommodations can be made for you.
Can you scan thing big again? Oh, make sure y'all can scan for the quiz. If not, we'll send it out. And after this,
They're saying, can you make the QR code bigger?
yeah, the background is bigger now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then there's one last one, which I think is a great question too. We are in entertainment, so we do have a lot of parties, and we always hang out because we're always working. What about drinking
I saw this
together at parties?
That's probably the hardest question on the quiz, and it's on the last page of the quiz.
Off premises.
Yeah, so there's no law against it, right? There's no law against partying with people you supervise or your coworkers. Is it a good idea? I would say no, not a good idea. People, become less inhibited when they're drinking alcohol. Obviously, things happen. The fact that I was drunk at the party and pulled down my coworker's top is not going to be a defense. You're going to be responsible for your behavior. We've had managers and supervisors lose their job for behavior that went on at company parties where there was drinking. So I don't think it's a good idea. It's not illegal. And we're in the entertainment business. And even in my own law firm, we have parties where we're drinking with staff. And everybody just has to exercise their good judgment, because they'll be held accountable for their behavior. I don't recommend it. I recommend that managers and supervisors find friends outside of the people that they supervise, because you're there to protect the company, not to pursue your own personal interests. Your employees are not your friends. This is my mantra. I say it all the time. But at the same time, the company promotes friendships, promotes camaraderie, and we are in the entertainment business. So like I said in the beginning, you're the best of the best. That's why you work here. Prove it. Go to these events and use good judgment, because you'll be held accountable if you don't. That's the best answer I have for that. It's the one that I could not even answer myself. I quickly took the quiz before we started today.
I think that's all
right.
of our questions so far. If
We'll see you guys next month, and we'll see what you do. Make sure you complete the test. How do they know how to get it back to you?
So you can scan the QR code, and we'll also send out a link after this. And there's also the complaint hotlines again. And if you have any questions about the broadcast, there's also GoBestListens.com, GoBestBiz.com/feedback. And thank you, Miss Deanna. That
My
was
pleasure.
amazing. I hope you
Thank
had
you.
fun
Yes, it was
with
so much.
us.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So, thank you for putting together this good quiz. It's excellent.
Well,
I'm
I can only
excited
do
to
it with
see.
your work. It helped a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was a product of our joint effort, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
All right.
Does Jason Money want to come say goodbye to everyone? Mr. Fun Jacket. He's coming.
Mr.
If y'all
Liver.
have any questions, all these ways you can reach out.
Mr.
Thank you
Liberace.
for joining us.
Mr. Money.
Here's Mr. Sparkle Jacket.
Hi, everybody. Well, that was the end of our legal seminar on human sexuality. No, not human sexuality.
Huh?
Wrong idea, right concept. Sorry, sexual harassment and discrimination. Now you know the do's and don'ts, so there's no excuse for doing the things you're not supposed to do. Normally we would do the shout outs, but we knew this was going to be a long one. Summer would like all of you to know you're doing a great job out there. Keep up the good work. She had all the shout outs done. So for those of you that have done a phenomenal job and deserve a shout out, great job. We'll be sending you a superstar award. So you have something special from today. And that way we could have this just be enough time that you guys would stay interested and excited. So keep up the good work out there. Excited to see all of you on the trail. And it was a pleasure. Thank you. Studios putting this all together today, and we'll see you at the next all cast, all managers meeting. Bye until then.
Trumpet.